I, of course, myself, I'm always thrilled to have any mogul skier on the show because it is my number one favorite sport, literally in the world. And I can now check the box off and say that I've interviewed more Australian mogul skiers than I have even Canadian, which is crazy. And today we have Australian mogul skier Sophie Ash, who you probably very recently saw in the 2020 Beijing Olympics, where she actually had finished in 16th place overall. And was that a career best for you? Can you confirm that?
Well, it's close, not quite, but it's definitely in the ballpark of that general area.
Yeah, which was very exciting for us to watch. And, I'm sure everybody who listens to our show a long time heard all our excitement about that. But we're thrilled to have Sophie on the show today. Sophie, thanks for joining us on Off the Podium.
Yay, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love podcast interviews and videos. First time I've done a podcast video or whatever you want to call this. I'm really excited.
Oh, nice. And like I said, I'm in Canada, and I probably would, be arrested for saying this, but if I had to choose between watching just random weekly World Cup Moguls event or watching the Stanley Cup Finals, I would choose the World Cup Moguls event.
It's so obscure. No one ever says moguls. They always pick something else. I'm so glad you love moguls.
I mean, you can probably see the people watch this. You can see behind my shoulder. I've got pictures from the Calgary Park. I've got some DeFrillo Point sisters, Mikkel Kingsbury picture there. So yeah, number one favorite sport for me. With Australia though, I mean, obviously it's not quite as big as it is here in Canada, or maybe don't have as much snow would be a big part of it. But how did you become involved in the sport in the first place?
Well, when I was really young, like 2 years old, I started skiing at Mount Buller, which is in Victoria, which is near where I live now currently. I was there for quite a while, like a number of years. I went through the program. I did ski school, and then I did a few other programs here and there, kind of race club and like freestyle related stuff, and then kind of went overseas a few times during like the summer just to like get my skills going. I went to, Colorado, Whistler. So I did go to Canada. I went to America, never Europe though. But it was really, really good to do that because then I kind of got used to skiing in different trains, and I also got really good coaching. So Richard Hasler was a guy I used to go over with. He used to be a race club, Mount Buller race club coach. Not sure what he does now, but he does programs there overseas. So I did that for a few years, and then inter-schools, which is another thing that we do in Australia, which most skiers and snowboarders do throughout school. It's just like a rite of passage, really. And then basically joined Team Buller Riders in 2011. Sorry, it's like a long timeline. I'm trying to think of when things started, when things stopped. Did the stuff with TBR. Then I moved up to Perisher, which is in New South Wales. Did that for the Perisher Winter Sports Club. Was really great. I did that. And I basically did that all the way through till I got into the New South Wales Institute of Sport, made it into the Australian team, the national Australian team officially. And then I did that basically from 2017 or 16, one of those years I started in the national team. And then I basically moved into World Cup. And then I did World Cup, and then I went to the Olympics. So that was kind of the progression. Yeah, that was a big story.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like it's a lot, but I mean, you're still very young. So I mean, how much time does that really cover from like the first time you really started skiing up until you're on the World Cup circuit?
I guess it's been 23 years ever since I was 2. So I know some people say, 20 years I've been skiing for 20 years. I have been skiing for 20 years as well, but like my whole life, I guess, because I'm, that age.
It's always crazy for me. Every time we get a skier on, whether it be ski jumping, cross country skiing, moguls, they always say, I started at 2 or 3 years old. And I mean, again, I live in Canada. Skiing is part of our gym class here. And yet I can't fathom doing this, even when I was like 12, 13 years old and it was mandatory. I'm like, this is awful. Like, how does I can never understand how a 2-year-old does it. Do you remember, your first time on skis, or does it go even further back than you can remember?
Oh, honestly, I remember this very vivid memory of losing my glove on the magic carpet, which is this thing you go on, and I think you
Yeah.
probably have one of those in Canada too, or wherever. I lost my ski glove. The glove got ripped up and it was just shredded, so I had no glove for the day. And I was like, oh no, but also I didn't really care because it was Mount Buller and it's about 5 degrees every day and the sun's giving you sunburn. So that was a memory I had, but everything was pretty good. I remember always enjoying it, or just always doing it in something else, and always looking forward to hot chocolate breaks, but not necessarily loving it to death, but loving it enough to keep going. But kids are kids, aren't you?
Yeah.
They don't really know what they're doing. You just do stuff and you think, oh well, whatever. So yeah.
And was it something where you always had the aspirations that you wanted to get into this, amateur, professional, whatever? Because I know that your sister is a skier too. I mean, is this something that your parents push for? Is it run in the family, or did it just sort of luck out that you and your sister both were incredible on skis, and your parents were like, yeah, there might be a future in this for them?
Yeah, it was the last option for sure. I think they always did it. They did it when they were younger, not as young as us, obviously, but different opportunities back then, I suppose, in Australia. But we just did it, and then we kind of went through the program together, and I think we just kept doing it because we were actually both pretty decent at it, and we loved it enough to, not like, I think a lot of the time when kids do sports, they think, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And you just don't ever keep going because they're like 10-year-olds sick of going in the snow and they want to, do other stuff. But it wasn't really like that with us. But I know my sister moved into different sports, and I did skiing throughout the whole time. Throughout my whole life, really. But then she came back to it in the end. So I think it was, she had more of a detour trying different sports, back in the day. So
I'm gonna have a couple questions about you and your sister a little bit later on, but just one thing to kind of get out of the way here. I mean, we just came off of the Beijing Olympics, where obviously minimal crowds. I mean, more than they might have had in Tokyo. And a lot of people, I guess, didn't have like the family that they normally would have come out for these events. But you're kind of in this select club where you were lucky that you had a sibling there or somebody. Did you get to watch her events? Did she get to come see yours?
She came to see my events, which was really cool. I'm so happy she came. I actually didn't see hers, which is really sad. We basically all left straight away. As soon as our event was over, we went home because of COVID risk. Because obviously, there was already cases in the village, even at the very beginning. So we were like, okay, if one of us gets COVID, there are other people, because we're all living together in a team, or like there was quite a few of us in this house we were staying in. So if someone got it, they were done. They were like 4 years just gone. So there was this like responsibility you had not to be reckless, and even if you wanted to stay on, there's still a risk you could give it to someone even if you weren't going out or whatever. So we just left straight away. So I didn't see her event, which is really sad, but I watched her on television and I supported her that way, and all her friends came over and that was really fun. Yeah, so I saw it, but not in real life.
Yeah, I mean, here in Canada, it became a joke on our show, but the biggest news story for a week straight, even when we were winning medals, was the Defer-LaPointe sisters, basically comforting each other, Chloe comforting Justine, which I can't even begin to say how much TV coverage I got, but it kind of occurred to me after a while. I mean, this really is kind of a unique games where you don't necessarily have that same support there. But I mean, you have a very large team in Australia that's able to compete in this. That's kind of the other thing that I find interesting is that even though Australia, this is 4 medals is really good for Australia in the Olympics. I mean, moguls is something you've always been very consistent in. You said you got to kind of all stay together, like as far as the moguls team, like you and Jakara and everybody else.
Yeah. Well, we all traveled together quite a bit. We basically over the last few years that COVID's existed, we haven't really seen anyone. We haven't really been able to socialize with other teams. So we've kind of been our own family and our own best friends, I guess you could say. Like we've got so close over that time as well, I think. And also, because of all the restrictions, we weren't really able to go home over those 2 years as well. And we would be going, we'd be hanging out together and then we would be able to go home. So then we'd just have each other and we'd talk to each other. So I guess it kind of felt like family was there in a way. And I'm glad that we all had that kind of like relationship in the end, because I think it was nice that we built that throughout that time. Yeah, because yeah.
And what do you think it is with mogul specifically that just clicks in Australia? You know, obviously Dale Big Smith is a big one. We're going to have to ask about Dale later on. We're obligated to on the show. We named our daily award after him.
I know, I love that.
But you know, obviously last time there was Matt Graham and Jakara did really well in Pyeongchang, and this time obviously Jakara takes the gold. What is it specifically with moguls that is it just Australians are drawn to the thrill of it, or is there a big push with funding and talent scouting?
Yeah, well, I think it's a bit of both. Like, I know a lot of people who we're quite, I'd say compared to other teams, we're quite a mature team in the sense that we're all quite old, not really old, like, 25, 26, 28, you know, very old, but not really. But in moguls, that's quite old. So obviously we have a lot of experience as a team. And I know some of the other people coming through, like, Jax, and she's not that old either, but she is still like not like, I know there are people in tour who are like 15, and then I know Cooper's coming through as well. And I think we've been really fortunate that we've had the older guys have kind of mentored the younger guys, and everyone's just like basically there to help each other out and provide, you know, words of wisdom every once in a while. So I think that's a big factor. And also just, I think there's been a lot of work to make our team kind of unified. And I think previously there's been times where there's been a lot of drama, or naturally, you know, there's been conflict amongst the team members and people, everyone's very different, but I think we all want to make it work. And I think that's unique to our team. Like, maybe it's just the time and place. And also obviously the coaches are great. And that's another thing I could go into, but that helps for sure. But I think you can have great coaches, but the team may not want to work, or, you know, there's people who are conflicting, but that also works. That's another level, which makes it even better, I think. Yeah.
And one of the first people we interviewed on the show, I think one of the first winter athletes, and now I think one of only two athletes we've interviewed multiple times, Britt Cox. You know, she had an incredible amount of success. And there was a time going to Pyeongchang where it looked like, okay, well, she's the only thing that's really going on the moguls team. And now everything's exploded. I can say, just from having attended a lot of it, I try to go to Calgary every single year for it. You start to see different personalities. You with the Japanese team, they all sort of, it's not just they stick together, like there's a distinct personality, and then the Canadian team and the Australian team as well. When you did make this team, did you feel like it was different then than it is now? Like, has there been more bonding now and more pushing each other than there was originally? A lot more?
Yeah, I think when I first got on the team, there was I think throughout the time I've been on the team, which has been since 2016. So that's like, I don't even know. I'm really bad at maths. 7, I don't know. Under 10 years, but just over 5 years, whatever that period. But I know initially when I came in, it was quite traditional, I'd say. And things have definitely shifted a lot because some of our coaches have moved into different positions. I know that it was a lot more divided because we have a few different categories of people. Like, we have OWI, and then we have New South Wales Institute of Sport. OWI is Olympic Winter Institute of Australia. So they're meant to be like different tiers of level. Like OWI A is like the A tier, and Swiss is normally the B tier. But I know as time goes on, we've kind of shifted together and we've kind of combined our resources. So now everyone's getting kind of similar coaching and similar opportunities to those who are the best. Because normally, I think previously in the past, the best or the A team would normally get more opportunities for training and competing with different more World Cup events and more training camps. But now it's kind of combined. So I think that's really good. And I hope that answered your question.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, just kind of a follow-up to that. Do you notice, or do you see that there is going to be any difference going forward now with the success there's been in the last 2 games? Because I kind of watched the Olympics, or at least until we started doing the show, I would always grow up watching the Olympics, assuming like, oh, the top athletes, like here in Canada, moguls is quite big. You know, they probably have all this funding. And the more athletes we interview, it's like, unless you are on a hockey team or something like that, you probably don't have the funding you need. But as soon as that success comes, there's a lot more support that's given and funding. Like, do you see that the success either coming into Beijing, or even now that Jakara is coming home with the gold, will you see that there'll be even more opportunities going forward for the entire team?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think like through Jack's results, we've opened a lot of doors just for funding. And also just, I think at the general level of our team and like in the competition, we all did quite well. And as a team, it did really well. So I think that would be great. I'm not really sure like logistically how the funding works really, but I just know it'll probably be better now. Yeah, I think it'll be better for sure. But I don't know what the Canadian team's like, but there are a lot of them, but there aren't quite as many of us. And I know there'll be less of us at the next Olympics probably too, because I know a lot of people are probably going to retire. Don't know who or when, but probably it's hard to say, but I think there'll be less people as well. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, here in Canada, I mean, I can assume moguls is probably closer to the top for the support you're going to get. But even at the same time, I mean, they went out of their way on the TV coverage here to say Mikkel Kingsbury is one of the few athletes, period, that Canada sent that literally he doesn't need support because he's got all the sponsorships and all that. But even that, I mean, the deferral points just have their own TV show, but I guarantee that they're still struggling to get the support and everything they need. But it's exciting whenever you have a sport that kind of does explode. Are you finding since Beijing even that there's new interest, you getting more followers, people coming up and recognizing you, saying, I watched you, now I'm really interested in the sport?
Yeah, interesting. I think sounds really bad to say, but I don't think anyone really knows what mogul skiing is here. Everyone loves swimming and everyone loves the summer sports and things like that. I have had a few of my friends be very excited for me and my family and people I know who I, work with and study with and all that. But I don't really have anyone coming up to me, but maybe I should just wear this shirt or tattoo Olympian on my face so people think, and they don't know what to say. But even then, I think I'd say maybe like football, Australian Football League, NFL, all those, summer sports, swimming, they're all the big shots here in Australia for sure. And this winter sports are a bit more obscure and people don't really relate because it's hard to ski here. Mm-hmm. So there's like a few mountains and it's very expensive.
So let's start just when you're growing up. When you're growing up, before you have any type of team that you're competing for, would your family just go on vacation somewhere? Or would you go out of your way, I want to go skiing, and where would you go?
Well, I think it's hard to think because I know in my mind, I kind of went on the path and then I stayed on the path. It wasn't like I had to necessarily do a whole lot personally to not ski. Like I think my family always loved skiing and we would go away and then I would just join a camp and I would just sign on to that. We didn't really go on many ski holidays where it was just the family. I know a lot of the camps were my holidays. So I think maybe I went on 2 family holidays probably in the last, 10 years. And the rest has just been ski camps. And then we happened to do something at the end with the team. So it's actually, a lot of it was training focused. There wasn't a whole lot of, early on, maybe the first 5 years, there was a lot of fun skiing, but I think it was pretty serious early on. And it was like competition focused early on, I'd say. Yeah.
Did you always know that moguls was what you wanted to get into? Because I think you were saying your sister sort of tried different things out. I mean, eventually she would end up in aerials, but was it always sort of moguls for you?
Well, I think I've always wanted to do something. Originally I did Alpine and that was a big one. And I went to a competition, I think it was called the Whistler Cup. It was that was the first time I represented Australia internationally for racing. And I did that. And then I think I realized that this was in 2010. And then I think I realized that I wanted to, because I did a bit of trampolining while I was skiing and I had to give trampolining up because of the skiing and it would always collide. So then I was like, I want to do something that has an aerial component and I want to it's freestyle. So I did mogul skiing. So it was the program I found out about at Mount Buller. I would have probably liked to have done slopestyle in retrospect, but I think moguls is pretty sick. And I know I was probably a bit I didn't know much about aerials at the time. I think that was kind of just, I think moguls was the one I chose and it just happened to be, I happened to be at the right place at the right time, I think, with that.
When did you know that you were going to get to go to Beijing? Does it come down to the wire the same as it does here? A couple of weeks out, hey, guess what? You can finally go.
It's kind of, I think throughout the season, you kind of hope for these goals and you kind of I could, I think it's really interesting with qualifying for the Olympics. It wasn't a long shot for me. And I think if you're on the World Cup tour, you kind of compete against Olympian, or you compete against everyone who are in the Olympics already. So you kind of know that you could beat any one of them, or you're in the same field as them essentially. So, but it's just more exclusive at the Olympics, but probably like minus 10 people. Compared to a normal competition, there's only like 10 people less, yeah. So I think I was kind of aware that I was probably going to go, but I obviously had to get results and just do what I could do. So I just trusted my ability and did a lot of mental work. And I think throughout the season, it was becoming more I was realizing it was probably going to happen. And then even when they told us, it was kind of a shock, but it wasn't really a shock. So I kind of knew in my mind, in my heart, I knew I'd probably be going, but I was just waiting for the confirmation. And then when we were there, yeah, that was when things became real. But I think for a long time, it felt like it wasn't really real. And then it's weird because when you're there, you like have this crazy dream of the Olympics and what it is, but then you realize it's just another competition. And it was kind of, and obviously COVID, but I think mainly it wasn't everything I imagined, but it was still unbelievable. But it was everything I thought it would be, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And speaking of COVID, I mean, anytime we talk to anybody who is at either Tokyo or Beijing, we kind of have to ask me, your games didn't get delayed like Tokyo did, but it was, I was actually at the Calgary 2020 event. I remember seeing on the news beforehand, and when I came home, the first sort of stories about COVID and seeing people in the airport, like I will always associate that with like the end of before the season was shut down. Obviously there's been abbreviated seasons, but have you felt any effects from not being able to compete as much as you have in past years, or any differences in the training going into this?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think training wise, there was a lot of training opportunities, thank goodness. And we were able to do that. But I know that was because we would leave. We basically wait for things to open up. We'd leave straight away, and then we'd just stay in a certain place, like a location, for as long as possible, rather than having frequent breaks like we normally do. We, fly back home, or you fly, you leave and go somewhere else. You couldn't do that. So you'd just be training for a long time. And so that was good in that sense. But I think the mental side was really tough, because like I felt a lot of burnout, and I think a lot of my other teammates did too. Like I know last year when we were overseas, we only did 2-3 competitions the whole tour. Normally do like 7 or 8, and I think we spent the whole time in this place called Ruko, which is in Finland, and it's dark all day there, and it's freezing, and there's nobody there. We couldn't talk to anyone, couldn't go anywhere, in the darkness all day. It was good. Like training conditions are really good, and like honestly great. But I think I actually had a lot of mental health related problems that year, and I actually missed the World Championships because I didn't want to do it. Not because of I actually was really struggling to stay in it and like stay focused, and I just made that decision. But other people went on and did it, so I'm really happy for them. But I think it was a really tough year. You just couldn't get away, basically. That was the mood.
Mm-hmm. So when you're in Beijing, what was, you don't really have another Olympics to compare it to, but I mean, you've been, competing in the World Cup long enough. What were some of the differences just with like the protocols? Like, were you able to get in as many training runs as you normally would? Was there, I know I've heard about people where they have to have this incredibly long wait, like isolating. I don't know if there was still isolation. Was that a thing in Beijing?
Yeah, for sure. When we got there, it was a very long process to get to the hotel. A number of reasons. I think it was just because there was a lot of people coming in. We were the first people coming into China that flew in from Europe. And so they were trying to figure out all their systems for getting us to the hill itself. So that took a long time. And then just all the COVID stuff, we had a test at the airport. We had to wait and things like that to see if we were okay or not, if we had COVID or not. And that was all good, luckily. And then I remember everything was fine, mainly. I think the main things were we just couldn't really see anyone in the village. There was just that caution surrounding COVID and if we got COVID or not. So we didn't really do many activities that were in the village, especially ones we had to wait around a lot. And also the competition was fine. Everything was actually quite normal. Luckily, we'd had the whole season to practice. We'd already experienced all that COVID stuff anyway, so I think that was good, and it wasn't new, so that was nice, and everything was pretty normal to us.
Yeah, a couple of things I'm just curious about that we've actually never asked any of the mogul skiers on here. One thing, what's interesting is with the Olympics, obviously the competition, the schedule, the qualifications a lot different than the World Cup. And the World Cup, everybody's going to go, and then you're narrowing it down to 16, and then you're narrowing it down to 6, and so on. Whereas you kind of have that second chance of qualification. Is that something you enjoy, or does it throw you off because you're just used to the World Cup so much?
I think it's really great. I think it actually opens the competition up a lot more, because if you make a mistake, it's obviously really forgiving, because normally you only get like one run and then that's it and you're done, or you're out, and if you don't make it. But I think with this, people were kind of like able to push themselves further and do things they would normally do because of the opportunities within the competition. And yeah, I think it was really good. And also it's really great for the nerves, because I think a lot of people are very nervous at this event, because it's obviously the big event, and people are like, oh, the Olympics are, but it's just like, yeah, you get that run out of the way, and then you can do more later on and still put down a good run, instead of just if you fall or something and then you just can't go on, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, and how about something else I've never asked about, but I'm curious about nighttime runs versus daytime runs? Because it seems like primarily, but I mean, visually on TV, nighttime looks incredible, but I don't know if that's easier or worse. Maybe the weather conditions play a factor?
Yeah, I know nighttime is always a lot better for me, and I think a lot more people like nighttime because the snow's always better. During the day, it can be weird if there's sun. Sun can sometimes make the snow like soft, or it can make it like flat, so you can't see. Like if the sun's on the course and then it's leaving the course, you can't actually see the course, and that can happen. Or weird things like that, where the snow conditions change because of where the sun is in the sky, and so then it's like 1 minute it's like rock solid because there's been no sun on it, and then the next minute the sun's on it and it's soft and like deep, and you're like, oh, I can hardly just ski the moguls anymore because it's so deep. Whereas at night it's pretty consistent, which is great. And also it's just, you can see everything a lot better. Everything's a lot more exciting. So I think nighttime's always associated with Deer Valley, which is a huge World Cup, and anything nighttime is just good, I think, to most people. Yeah,
it's funny because I live here in Winnipeg, and I don't know, you've probably never been here. I wouldn't recommend coming, especially if you don't. We've had like the snowiest winter we've ever had in the longest time, but we basically have like very sunny days, and you're completely right. Like as soon as the sun hits it, everything solidifies. I mean, we had a brush of snow the other day, and I'm like, I'll just leave it. I'll shovel tomorrow. And of course the sun's out, and the next thing you know, I can't even get a shovel past this. So I can't imagine like how much of the course workers have to go out there to smooth things out. And have you ever had a course? I'm sure you've had it many times for different reasons, but have you ever had a course that they just had to close down because the snow's consistency just isn't right?
No, I wish. There are times where I wish they'd closed a course because it was so terrible, like just sheet ice, like complete ice. No, they never have, thank God. But I know there are times where the jump has melted and they've had to close the top jump or the bottom jump because it's not hard enough to hit. Like I know in Japan, when I did a World Cup there a few years ago, they didn't, in one of the training days, they closed the top air, so we just couldn't do that because it was too hot. So we didn't, But apart from that, no, they don't really, unless it's really bad weather conditions, but generally no.
Now, Beijing, one of the big stories of those Olympics was the weather conditions. It seems like no matter where you hold the Olympics, you're always going to get the exact opposite weather of what you intended. When Vancouver had the Olympics here in Canada, it's like, oh, it's like +7 outside and it's raining. But it was almost, it went the opposite direction where they assumed, oh, Beijing's going to be too warm. There's not going to be enough snow. What were the conditions like? Because it was fairly early on. I think day 1, day 2. So had any of the bad weather come at that point?
Well, there was one day where it snowed a lot, and I know for the boys' training, that was the first training day, I think. It snowed a heap, and the boys were kind of like, "Oh, this is sweet! Like that's just fun. It's not really proper mogul skiing, but it's awesome. It's fun to do powder skiing." But they did that, but then it kind of disappeared quite quickly because the snow just I don't know where it went, but it's dry and it probably blew away because it's so super windy in China, especially where we were. We were near a wind farm, so that was interesting, but it was just obviously not great placement. But overall, the weather was pretty good, I'd say. It was very cold. It was about -30 degrees a few days in a row, and not including the wind chill, I think. I remember also it was really windy, and so you'd be in the start gate and the wind would be coming in from somewhere, and my goggles kept fogging, like on my competition day, my goggles kept excuse me, sorry, my goggles kept fogging up and I'd have to take them off and they'd freeze over so you couldn't see. You have to like heat them up every run so that you could see. But it was pretty good considering other places have been, and we were in Ruka, so it was really cold there too. So we're like mentally prepared for the cold weather, I think.
Was there any expectation of what it was going to be like in Beijing? Like, was there a forecast 2 weeks out where you're like, this is what you guys are going to be preparing for?
Yeah, we knew it was just going to be really cold. It's always really cold there. But no, not really. Like, I think just mentally preparing for freezing cold days, that was about it.
So getting onto the competition day and everything, like I said, I think you did have one World Cup event. We finished 15 or 16, somewhere around there, the same spot. But I don't know if you have an answer for this, if it's even the way you go in preparing, but did you have an expectation, like I could potentially make top 20 in this? What were sort of your thoughts just going into the games about where you might finish overall?
Yeah, well, I know I was really happy with my skiing throughout the tour. I think I had a back injury a few years ago. No, sorry, I don't even know. It was in 2021, halfway through that year. I got this back injury and I kind of normally do a back full on top air and I normally do a back flip on bottom air. And I had been doing that previously in World Cups and stuff. And I know this year I had hardly any training and I think the motion of twisting on one side made it worse. So I kind of didn't really train that. And so then when I came into the tour, I had lower DD skills, which were still good. And like a lot of people do them on tour, like the truck driver and the backflip. And I was happy to do that. And I think they were really good by the end. I was really happy with how I progressed. But I know that maybe there was always this thought in my mind that if I'd done my other skills, I may have done better. So I was hoping, I was aware that I probably wouldn't be in the super final or anything like that, unless it was like a killer run. So I had that awareness, but also I was just kind of enjoying the experience and I didn't really want to focus on the results. Like I didn't have that pressure. Luckily, throughout the tour, I hadn't really podiumed or anything like that. So I don't think there was any really real expectation for me to do that. So I was happy I didn't have that pressure. So it would have been a killer. And, Jack and Britt had that, I think. But they're very experienced, whereas I was really overwhelmed at my first game. So I was kind of like just trying to enjoy it and be in the present and not worry about the results too much. But I did end up doing what I wanted to do, even if maybe the results didn't quite reflect that. I think I was happy with what I did. So
well, still, I mean, as many Australians that made it that far in the competition, I mean, that's got to be a victory in itself.
Yeah.
One thing you said back there, another thing I thought of, never actually have asked anybody yet, but how often is there improvising? Because I'm assuming you go in and okay, I'm going to do this trick and I'm going to do this on the second jump, but there are a lot of factors. And one of the most common things you always hear is, you want that qualifying position where you're the last one to go, so what's come before you. Is there a lot of improvising when you're like, okay, I just saw Britt did this and Chloe did this and Jalen Koff just totally blew it out of the water. I'm going to change things up. I'm going to improvise. Does that ever come up?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think some people have a lot of skills in their bag, like they have multiple jumps they could do at any time, basically. So I think those people who have that are at an extreme advantage. So they're able to improvise. But I think a lot of the time people will just do a simpler skill. I know the men do a lot more of the improvisation stuff just because they have more skills to do, they have to choose from. I know though in duels, the dual mogul event, which isn't at the Olympics, but the one that we do sometimes in the World Cup, people do very simple skills for that. And there's a lot more improvisation there because they don't really mark you as much on the, like how clean it is. They mark you on a lot of the time. It's just who gets over the line, who beat, because dual moguls, if whoever doesn't know what dual moguls are, there's two people going down at once basically, and the person who wins is normally the one who goes over the line and has a slightly better run than the other one. But it's not like you need to be crazy fast in singles. Like you don't have to be going hard and so basically anything that dual moguls is where it happens the most, I'd say. Where the stakes aren't as high for judging, but singles probably not as much, especially the Olympics this year. I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of that because people were quite nervous and wanted to perform after, not performing. There's a lot of new people at this Olympics too, I think, in moguls. So, yeah.
I'm glad you brought up dual moguls too, because that was one of our big talking points during the games. And we've asked people about this before. There are a couple of World Cup events per year where you get to do dual moguls. The weird thing is as many freestyle skiing events as there are, everybody has duplicate events. You have multiple events for aerials, even. You have multiple events for the slopestyle athlete. Eileen Gu automatically qualifies for 3 events, just because she's, in one discipline, she gets all 3. Moguls doesn't have dual moguls in the Olympics. Do you think there's a reason why, or would you be for adding a second event? Would you compete if you had a chance to do 2 events?
Yeah, well, dual moguls is really interesting because I think it's really fun to watch. It's crazy, and people kind of throw a lot of their technical training out the window and they just go hard, and I think it's pure primal energy, whatever. But I know in singles, it's a lot more technical. And so I think if you want quality, I think singles is where you go. But for duals, it's more excitement. It probably would be better for television, but also dual moguls, people always get injuries because they're going so hard. A lot of the time, the runs are just crap. Sorry, but they're terrible runs, and people are just doing what they can. And it does kind of make mogul skiing look like it's all over the place, and it's not really great. Like, you don't do backflips like that in moguls. Like, it's, but I think perhaps that in the future it'd be cool because it would probably it'd be more popular, I'd say. So maybe that would be cool. But I think moguls would change as a sport, and you wouldn't train the same way if that were something that would be in there, or that replaced singles.
Yeah.
People would probably be way less technical for sure. Just kind of bad. You don't want it to go backwards, I guess. But maybe it's not backwards. Who knows? It's forwards. I don't know. Whatever. But.
Well, it seems to be the way that they're going, where it's going to be multiple events for every sport. But I have another thing to pitch you here. Aside from dual moguls, let's even say combined. We have 3 moguls events now. So you have singles, you have dual moguls, and team events seem to be coming in a big thing now. So, I mean, do you see any potential of a team event being? How do you think logistically that would work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have to be similar to aerials, I guess, where each of them do their individual and jump, but for us it would be a run. I think we did it we've done it before at some small event in Perisher, New South Wales. I think we tried it. Wow. Yeah, I don't remember how it went. So I didn't do the event, and I had to leave, so I couldn't see it. But I'm not really sure logistically. I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe you'd have your runs, everyone would go, and you would just take the best results from, you just combine their results, the 2 people's results. Or
well, I think that's kind of how snowboard and ski cross are doing it, or I think just snowboard cross, where let's say if you had a men's team and a women's team, you have Matt Graham going down, and he crosses. Okay, this is your time, and then you go next, and your time added on top of Matt's, and then you compare that to the others. It would be interesting to have something like that. Personally, I want to see more moguls in the Olympics. I mean, it's the only freestyle, it's one of the original freestyle skiing sports, and you don't have a second event. It just seems wrong to me.
No. It'd be pretty cool. I'd like that. I'd like to see that. And it would also, if, there's teams where there's only one woman or one man, it would maybe get the team to consider trying to find other people to do the team event with. Like, I know at aerials we really only have women, and we have a guy who's really good too, but he came on late because of some stuff that's been going on, but he is in the team now, and he would be great to do the team event with. But it's just stuff like that. It's encouraging the opposite gender, or whatever, to join in if they hadn't before, I guess, or weren't encouraged by people who were choosing, I guess.
Well, and the other interesting thing, and just speaking from what Canada's experience been in the past games, aerials is something that we originally did very well in, but we haven't medaled in like 20 years. And we ended up medaling in the team event. And the same thing happened in ski jumping. Canada has never had a ski jumping medal. And that ended up being one of the biggest stories of the entire Olympics, is that we medal. We're not necessarily going to medal in an individual event, but you put a team together and it'd be something. I'm going to ask you a question. Feel free to skip the question if you want, but let's say you're putting together the Australian A team, the Australian B team. You get to choose one of the male skiers to be partnered with. Who's going to give you your best chance? Who would you trust enough that they're not going to wipe out and ruin your chances of winning a medal?
Well, I think that's really interesting because, like, I think people would think, oh, you'd obviously choose the best person, but I think it depends because on the individual. So say you have someone who's really good at jumping, but they're not very good at, consistency, and they always do really well, but only once in a while, whereas it's very strategic, right? So I think that's really hard to say because I'm not very consistent at all as a person. I pull it out when I can.
You weren't speaking about skiing? Were you just speaking life in general?
Everything. Life. But maybe I'd want someone who is consistent. So I would go, well, everyone is, all the guys are pretty consistent. Maybe I would say Brody because he is a mature athlete. Also, from like a personality perspective, if we were in a team together, it's not quite the same because we would normally, as an individual sports person, you do your own thing, you go about your own business alone before competition. If it were a team event, maybe it would be different. I don't know. Maybe we would have to. So he's a very calm, balanced person. He'd probably bring me down, and I would bring me down to level, and we'd be able to just go from there. But also, anyone can have their perks. Like Cooper is a powerhouse. Matt is obviously a really good powerhouse. They're all really good. So it's actually really hard to pick. So maybe, I don't know, it's hard. I don't know, because I said Brody, but now I'm starting to think of other people. I don't know. I have no idea.
We're going to hold auditions. We're going to get Matt, and Brody, and Cooper all on here, and then they can vie for your vote.
And then they have to want to go with me, and I'm probably not the most, eligible candidate too, because that. But then, so
the fun thing with a team event, it's like putting together an Avengers team, or a Justice League.
Yeah.
You could be the co-leads of the Justice League of Australia or whatever.
I know.
I'm just imagining, now that you mentioned that about you want to have, somebody who compliments you. I'm sort of picturing, I don't know if these names are going to mean much to people who aren't following moguls, but I don't know if I can imagine an Ikuma Harishima, Enri Kawamura team. You might think on paper they're the two top ones, two of the top in the world, but are they going to work well in a team? So if nothing else, you can assign the teams and then you can just prove you've got the knowledge there. You know how to put a team together.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great though, because those guys, they're a great team, the Japanese team. And I know our team, we're all very collaborative. So we do work really well together. So I think actually anyone would be fine. Sorry, boys. Sorry, Brody, if I've dissed you. I haven't dissed you, but I think anyone would be okay, honestly. And I think it would be, as I was saying, I think if they had to choose, I don't think I'd be a choice, but I hope I would just because I'm, a nice teammate. But I think it's hard to say. I think it's really hard. It's a really hard decision. Yeah.
Well, it'll be there, at some point. We'll say before Vancouver, we'll get there. I mean, I'll pull some strings in. If Vancouver gets the 2030 Olympics, then we'll make it a thing. Yeah. One thing I want to ask you really quickly about is sort of the stuff you've done on the side, or we could say on the side, but it's actually associated. You are the first, let's say, professional animator that we've had off the podium.
Oh.
When we get to our final set of questions, I'm going to put a little pressure on you for that. But I'm guessing this is something you just studied in school, but it's great. Yesterday, I was looking up your website and saw that you had the movie on there, which you made a Moguls animated film, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about animation, just your interest. Is this something you want to get into down the road? Or are you putting together the first ever feature-length animated Moguls film? Because I'll be there.
Yeah. Well, I did it at university. I did a undergraduate fine art degree, animation specific at the University of Melbourne, at the art school there. I did it for a few years, but I think I was doing a lot of training at the same time. And I think I always wanted a way to express, I guess, how I felt about sport and just, the nature of, there's a lot of stuff in sport that is very interesting to me, just from a mindset perspective, a lot of mental stuff, very primal, very cutthroat, kind of very tunnel vision oriented, focused on the goal. And it's quite inhuman, or it's quite traditional, I think, because a lot of the times nowadays people, obviously back in the day before, society is all this very old-fashioned approach to life. You see a tiger and your heartbeat goes up and it's like fight or flight. I think in my animation, I always wanted to kind of convey that theme because like I always had that going on, like that kind of those feelings. But I think, so I wanted to convey that. And so I made like a film after I went to the Freestyle World Championships in 2019, because that was like quite a tough year for me. I think there was a lot of conflicts going on internally and externally, and I wanted to make a film. So I made a film that was my final film of my undergraduate degree, and I guess I entered into competitions and it did well. But I think I have animation as an escape because I love art. I love creating animation and storytelling. I think that's the main thing, and trying to like figure out the world, I guess, through animation. But I also really like just hearing athlete stories, like different from my own. Like I know I was doing this series that it's called Intramentum. It's Latin for in the mind. It's just a name that I made up. But I started doing a series with that too. It's not great, and I need to spend a lot more time on it. But I basically interviewed my sister Gabby, and I also interviewed Kat Bissett. She is a runner, and she actually broke the national record. I think she's done it multiple times. I'm sorry, Kat, if I got it wrong, but she's a really inspiring athlete too, and she's struggled with a lot of mental health related things. My sister's obviously my sister, and she's cool to me as well, and I would like to know. I wanted to share like her story and Kat's story and other women's stories, like females in sport as well. Like I just wanted to share those stories through my animation too. So anyway, it's kind of a lot of different things going on, but mainly the film I made and also the series I'm doing. And I probably want to make a film about my experiences at the Olympics, something like that. I'm not really sure. But I think, it's very broad.
And how long does it actually take you to put together like 60 seconds of animation?
Takes a long time. It took that film I made is about 2 minutes long. It took a year to make that.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's just with one person. So normally you have a production team and you hire people to do multiple jobs. Obviously, like in film, it's the same in animation. You have actors, you have, storyboarding where you create the, draw pictures and for the film, and you have all that stuff. And that normally doesn't take that long to make something like that. You normally have to pay people. I don't have that money to pay people.
Wow.
And things
I don't
like
think
that.
you have to. I mean,
Yeah.
we just said we're auditioning for Cooper and Brody and Matt here. Right there, you just cut this down to 3 months just by getting them to chip in the labor to be part of your team. There you go.
To teach them some stuff about art. Well, it's quite a long process, and it does normally. It's very short, but I made it very long. And I was training at the same time, so I didn't really have it didn't have my full attention. It was like going in between training and animating, or training and creating this film, basically. So maybe if I wasn't skiing, I would have done it in a shorter period of time. Who knows?
But then what would the movie have been on then?
Exactly, yeah. And you need that part, exactly. And that's why I love that, having two things to do at once. So I think it keeps things fresh, and I don't think I could function without having multiple things at once to do. Mm-hmm. I think it is good.
We're going to get to our final set of questions here, which I'm excited about now. But before we do, we have to ask, we got a bit of an answer from Britt Cox on this, but I don't know if you've had any more recent interactions. Dale Big Smith, ever met him? Have any stories about him? Know if he's still on his island somewhere? Anything?
I actually don't know. I've never met him. Oh, I met him once when I was really young. He was way before my time, I'd say. He was just kind of ending when I started mogul skiing, I think. So, but I've heard stories about him. I do wonder about him every so often, because you see photos of him everywhere, and I do wonder where he is. Where is
for you, I mean, this isn't even like, he's before my time. It's like, this could be like the myth of like the Sasquatch or the Loch Ness monster.
I know the
Dale Big Smith real. I've heard stories.
I know, but I actually do. I think on some level he always inspired me, even though I've never met him really. And I think not only as a mogul skier, but I think also as like his work outside of mogul skiing and his, I guess, drive to do stuff with, I don't even know what you call it, not like the internet pop-ups, right? That is like, I think that's really innovative, like combining, doing two different things and still being really like one of the best, really good, but also having this really awesome business that's not really related, and still just doing that anyway. And I think that's great. I think that was always inspiring. I used to think about it and be like, that's really cool. I like that and I want to do that too. So
another quick question before our final set of questions. I'll just keep adding these on as I think about it. The overall results, I guess. Well, let's just mostly talk about the men's side here. I mean, the surprise of seeing Walter Wahlberg walk away with a gold medal, which I mean, it should hurt me more as a Canadian who keeps a picture of myself with Mikkel Kingsbury on my wall. But I mean, I saw that, I'm like, oh, good for him. Like, didn't see that coming. Do you get excited watching the results, even if it's not your competition?
Yeah, I think I do. I think with the men, it's really exciting because you just never really know what's going to happen with them. And I think it was quite nerve-wracking to watch the men. So I know we were watching it. We were watching it on television because we didn't go out to see them because we actually had competitions the next day. So it was just like we were doing that. But I know watching them, it was really intense. It was like, oh, like normally you just watch and you're like, oh, like that's cool. You know, I'm happy they did a good run. But at this event, you're like, all right, like this is like, it feels like everything, you know. And I think it was very stressful. Yeah. But I was really happy with how they did. They all did really well. And I feel really bad for Matt because that was really tough for him because he you know, had that shoulder thing. His collarbone. He broke his collarbone and he kind of was out for a while and he was training. But I think it was just, it's just one of those competitions for him. And he's always a really good sport and he handled it really well, I think. But the stakes are pretty high. So but I believe he'll, you know, come back and he's you know, like nothing ever happened and he'll go on and I think that's why he's so good because he has that resilience. But I think everyone did really well. I'm really happy for Cooper. He did super well. Like I'm also really happy for Brody and Jim. Like they did really well as well. And I'm just really proud of all the boys, to be honest, because I think you can watch them and not have that competitive thing because obviously with Britt and Jack and Tay, I was competing against them. So on some level, you have this competitive edge and you want to do really well. It's just unavoidable, you know. But I think with the guys, there's nothing there, which is great. And I think that's why I have a lot of other friends in other sports because you don't have that competitive thing with them. And it's easy to kind of separate competition and friendship. Yeah.
And you have one more World Cup event coming up, which it's kind of weird when you have like a big layoff before you come back. I mean, does that work in your favor? Do you like the fact that you have a bit of a recovery before you have to go back and finish off the season?
Actually, I'm not going to do that World Cup, which is, it was just a decision that a lot of us made. I think it's just better for our training sometimes. Like we don't go unless we have to. And I think Jack's going because she wants to win the globe essentially. But if you're not really close or anything like that, it's not really worth going. It's fun, but it's not, especially because we live so far away as well. And we just want to kick off, you know, the next 4 years and start training again. And it can put back your training as well if you're just doing competitions all the time. So, yeah. And
you still have a goal of Milan Cortina in 4 years. We're going to see you again.
I hope so. We'll see. I'm kind of deciding what my direction will be. Obviously, I have some time off now to think about it. And I think it's natural for a lot of people to question, you know, every 4 years what they're doing because it's been such a long 4 years. And with COVID, it was a lot as well. So I think we'll see. But I think it's looking like that will be the case to keep going. But you never really know. So...
Well, let's get to these final questions here. We like when we can use an athlete from a sport. Basically what this is they didn't do it for the last 2 Olympics, although we heard from some athletes, they filled these out and they just never posted it online, I guess. But on the Olympic.ca website, they get the Team Canada athletes to fill out a questionnaire. They actually do it in their own handwriting and all that. And some of them were just fun questions. And there is a drawing element to this. Now, this is the part that I'll get to. We've had I think at least 2 athletes who have said, I'll send you a drawing later on of this. So as somebody who's artistically talented, capable of doing this, no pressure, but if you wanted to do your own drawing for any of these, send it through. We will post it on our Instagram, and we'll see if you can compete with the bobsledders who have been big on drawing so far.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, why not? Yeah, I love a good drawing.
So we're actually going to use Chloe to fill a points questionnaire here. So let's just start off with your favorite Olympic moment is.
That's a tough one. I think when that, sorry, my dog's barking in the background.
Oh, my children are barking upstairs. It's normal here.
Well, I think maybe my favorite Olympic moment was the part. It was during the second competition day when you're in the final. Sorry, you're not in the final. You're doing Q2, and you're trying to get into the final, and you're kind of in this flow state, and you're kind of going through. You're doing the training. You're getting the runs. You get the Q2 run. You just keep rolling with it. You're kind of on like you're riding a wave. Emotionally and physically, it's like that flow state where you don't really feel nervous. You know what you have to do. You don't feel anything. You just kind of click into this like no thinking stage. You're not nervous anymore, and it's like I think that feeling is my favorite in all competitions, and particularly at the Olympics. I had that when I was going into like my F1 run, and just like doing that was a great feeling, and I think that feeling is probably the best one I had. It was just like being in the competition.
Right. Yeah. Well, the next one's going to be a little bit more of a stretch away from the Olympics. If I could have any superpower, it would be
probably time travel, because you can. Yeah, I think it's great because you never have enough time. The world, everything runs on time, and how much time you have to do this, and prioritizing things because you don't have much time, things like that. I think that would be great to have that.
I would always say flying, but like time travel, that makes more sense to me.
and you can win the lottery. You could go back. I've actually thought about this a lot.
You can play Back to the Future, get a sports almanac from the future.
Yeah, exactly. You could find out. But maybe I wouldn't want to know what happened in the future. You never know.
Well, you could know how things go in Milan Cortina in 4 years.
Exactly.
You can plan to perform differently if you need to.
Yeah, I know. And then I wished I'd known I was going to come here, because I know a few years ago I didn't know if I was going to make it, and I did. So I'm happy I did, but I wish I knew that then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the next one is a drawing one, and it's actually draw a picture of one of your teammates. Chloe drew a picture of her sisters, obviously, but you've got a lot to choose from. We've already planning on auditioning a couple of them anyways. So if you wanted to send in a picture, it could be stick figure, whatever you want, feel free to send it in. My least favorite foods are
capsicum. I hate capsicum. Or peppers. No, you're not American. What am I saying? Capsicum. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. In America, I always say capsicum, and it's peppers there.
Oh, okay.
So, or whatever. So,
yeah.
And I thought for a second, I thought you were American. You're not American. I'm so sorry. You're Canadian.
It's a terrible thing. Am I calling you a Kiwi? What is this?
Yeah, I know. The capsicum. Oh
yeah. So you're not a big fan of spicy food, or?
I don't know. I've just never liked it. We have a bit of a joke about it because we always make meals for each other on tour and on camps, and I make salads for people and I put the capsicum in because I know some people like it, but I don't like it. And there was, you're a team player. But I just forget, honestly, but I hate it.
Well, here's one for something you're going to enjoy. If I weren't an athlete, then I would be.
I would probably be a filmmaker, which I kind of already am, but I'd probably be a bit more in the industry, or I'd be a director, a film director, or I'd be an artist or teacher, which is actually what I'm studying to be a teacher now, an art teacher. So I'm kind of already doing that.
Oh. It's not even the dog approves too. That's
Yeah, the dog was barking. Nelson, thanks.
This isn't even like, oh, if I wasn't an athlete, you could do it all. Like it's just
Yeah, I like it. I like it that way. Yeah.
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 Your favorite vacation spot is, and then the second part of this is because, which Chloe missed the because on here, which is now bothering me. But your favorite vacation spot and because, the reason why.
I think my favorite vacation spot, I really like France, Paris. My dog's barking again. He agrees. No, but I think Paris is really lovely, and also there's a lot of art galleries there and a lot of history. And I do like Europe on a holiday. I don't know if I could live there necessarily, but yeah, Europe's great. Love Europe.
Now, this one, you could take this as a food, anything, television show, whatever, but just your guilty pleasure is.
Probably YouTube. I love watching YouTube too much, and I watch it all the time.
You can watch yourself on YouTube. You are watching yourself on YouTube right now, right?
I know. Well, yeah, true. Hi. Sophie from the future.
This is time travel and your guilty pleasure. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
This one, I don't know what they wrote it in French. Apparently, it was the only thing Chloe didn't read in English. But it says, draw a picture of yourself, draw a picture of your favorite animal. So, second, if you wanted to, instead of doing a teammate, draw a picture of your dog. Or your dog as your teammate, your dog on mogul skis, we will accept either.
Yeah, I'll draw a picture of Nelson, but he's not barking anymore now, so maybe he doesn't agree. So we'll see.
Final question. This one's interesting. I'm going to add an extra one on at the end of this because I always like this extra question. But this one, if I could be an Olympian in any sport other than your own, what would it be?
This is a hard one because I feel like I would say trampolining, but also it's... if I were to be an Olympian but had no prior experience at all, I would probably say half pipe. So that's sick. Yeah.
Do you get to train on the trampoline much? I know that's one of the things that often mogul skiers kind of bounce around a little bit, post training videos on.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do a lot of stuff. We do aerial stuff, and then we do this thing called brassards, which is like a drill where you basically have your knee. It's like mogul skiing, but on a trampoline. So you're just trying to like get that speed and agility, but it's exhausting.
Yeah, I've seen videos. It looks very difficult.
It's very hard. You can only do it for like 10 seconds at a time, 20 seconds at a time. You're just cooked. Anyway.
And what about the half pipe? Do you just get to ski just for fun sometimes? Have you ever tried it out?
Yeah, I'm trying to be. I suck at it, but I think with some training it'd be all right. I want to be better at it. Yeah, I think it'd be really fun, and it looks really cool. Like just the vibe looks good, when you watch competitions and stuff.
So this is the last question I'll add on here, which feel free to answer yourself. If you nobody's done it yet, but you can always be the first. But who is the greatest Olympian of all time?
Oh. That's really tough because there's so many things that go into it that make someone amazing. And I think from like a result standpoint, you could say, gold medalists, but also there are people who just have injuries and they're resilient and they've come back from them. And it's like the amount of mental and physical work that's they've had to go through just to even be at an Olympics. And then also people who, haven't had opportunities that have made it because of just physical work, mental work. So I'm not going to answer that either. It's really hard. I don't think, I can't. I don't want to do anyone an injustice, to be honest, because I just understand because I am an athlete. I understand how hard all the nuances of it and things that people don't see that a lot of people do, even it's sad to say, but the worst people who are in the Olympics who don't ever get the result they want, they still work really hard. Everyone works really hard. So yeah, it's hard. So no answer. Sorry.
So I heard Dale Big Smith. That's all I heard there, right?
I kind of thought about him. I was like Dale Big Smith, but then also, things are different now. He was doing skills that women are doing now, and it's hard. I'm not sure. He was pretty good though. It was pretty good. Yep. And there's teammate. Yeah, exactly. Myself, no. Just kidding.
Why not?
No, self-support. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, not sure. Sorry, can't answer that one.
Now, before we let you go, is there anything you want to plug? Where people can find your animation, how they can follow you on social media, anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I actually really didn't do a very good job at explaining my whole animation philosophy, which is fine, but I'll let you guys interpret your, my own work. So you can go to my Instagram, which is Say Soph. So it's CESTSOPH. It's meant to be "This is Soph" in French. So if you don't know,
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, Google Translate "This is Sophie," and that's the username basically. So Say Soph is my Instagram handle. Twitter handle is also Say Soph as well. And then my website's sophash.com. So it's just SOPHASH.com, and then you can find all my animation. And then I also have a Vimeo. I have a Facebook, which I actually can't get into, but you can see some of my work. I locked myself out of it because I removed myself as an admin, and I'm the only admin. I didn't realize you could even do that, but you can. So no one owns it. Facebook owns the page, but you can still see my work on there. And then I also have some other films that have been in festivals previously that you can find. And it's been, a bunch of festivals all over the world. So you can, if you look up my name, my website and films and all those things. And on LinkedIn, I have a LinkedIn as well. It's just my name. So yeah.
Not say your name, though.
Say my name. Just my name.
I mean, Perrine Lafont instantly got it. Other people, it takes the explanation, right?
All the French, that's why I did it. They get it. And, all my friends speak French. All my good friends are either Quebecois or French. So that's the goal. I just want them to know. It's exclusive.
Well, seriously, it's great having any mogul skier on here. It's great hearing about stories of Beijing and everything like that. You already see behind me, and anybody watching on YouTube can see my moguls wall with all my Canadian. You can't see right now, but I have another frame with all the non-Canadian athletes. I have Perrine Lafont on there, Benjamin Cavey, Kimo Hirishima, Jalen Koff. I don't have any Australians. And I've mentioned this on our show that every time I go to the World Cup, it's like the Australians, they compete and they're gone right away. So next time you're in Calgary, make sure to stick around. We could do like our first ever video interview, and then I could add you to my wall of fame here.
Yeah, I'd love to be on your wall of fame. That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be awesome.